Hey everyone, I'm Chapple. I upload business videos pretty much every day, so hit that subscribe button if you want to see those. Now today, we are talking about one trait that you need in order for you to get rich, to get wealthy. So I actually made this video recently. I made a video about the 1%. Who are the 1%? And I went through a list of who actually fills up the 1% and why most people don't really know who the 1% are. And so most people that are a part of the 1% have either an MBA, a master's in business, or you have a medical degree, or you have a law degree. Those are the three big things that people need in order to be a part of the 1%. In fact, the majority of the people in the 1% have at least one of those things. But this video is not about that. It is about something that the average person needs to have in order for them to become rich. And this is more of a personality trait than anything. So this is for the person that doesn't have any of those special degrees that you have to put in 4 to 8 years of your life into. Anyways, this is a trait. We're going to talk about it right now. So for anyone that doesn't have a medical law degree or an MBA, you need to have this if you want to become rich. You need risk tolerance. What do I mean by that? We're going to talk about this now. So I mentioned in that other video, in one of my other videos about like how to become a millionaire, something that you need to do is to have a side business or to have a job where there's no cap on how much you can earn, because you're not going to become a very wealthy person or a millionaire by simply being an employee making $30,000 to $35,000 to $40,000 a year. If you want to get rich, you need some risk tolerance. You need to take some risks. You need to take some risks where you have maybe a commission-based job where you can have an income that ranges from $20,000 to $200,000 to $400,000 or more. Or maybe you need to try to start a side business where that's really risky too. And you know, we're going to get into this. Why, you know, we're going to talk about this actually. So Bill Gates says that anyone can become rich, and it's not your fault if you're born poor, but it's your fault if you die poor. In this video, we're going to talk about why some people will never ever be able to become rich or be able to become wealthy. Because some people they don't have enough risk tolerance. Now we're going to get into this right now. So we're going to talk about age first. So being a young person has advantages and disadvantages. Usually if you are young and you are 20 years old, 25 years old, 30, 35 years old, you're really young, you don't have a lot of savings or anything along those lines. And so if you take a risk and it doesn't pan out in your career, that's okay, because you have lots more time to figure it out. And so usually people, the younger the better. So I know most of you watching this are in your 20s, or younger, or below the age of 35. And so you're in a perfect time right now to take risks. So if you're ever going to start a side business, start it right now, whatever that may be. Now we're going to move on to something else here, is urgency. So this relates to risk tolerance and things along those lines, because there's so many people out there that don't have any urgency. They just want to be wealthy and financially free in 2 decades or 25 years or 30 years. The people that are willing to take risks right now in order to get wealthy in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, those are the people who are actually going to make it. That urgency, that taking those risks. And we talk about this. Actually, I just released this Wealth Accelerator program. You can check it out in the link in the description below. But that's one of the things, urgency. That's one of the things that you need in order to become wealthy. We're going to move on here to, let's see, family. Here's another thing, is that a lot of people with family, if you're supporting a family especially, if you're the head of your household, or maybe you and your partner are both earning $30,000 a year and you have a bunch of kids, you cannot necessarily take a risk. Well, I mean, you can. But if you take a risk and it fails, your kids might go hungry, you might lose your house. And so that's another thing too. Why some people can't take that risk to become wealthy is because they're locked down with their family. They do not want their kids to go hungry. They do not want their spouse to go hungry. They want to be able to pay the electricity bill. They want to be able to stay in a good neighborhood for their kids and for their family to give them a good life. So again, if you do not have family and you do not have kids and you're watching this right now, good time to take some risks. Take that commission-based job. Take that job with no cap. That's a little bit riskier. Start your side business right now. Now we're going to move on here to, we're going to talk a little bit about savings. And so this is another thing too, is that people with a large amount of savings can obviously take higher risks. Yet people with no savings cannot take a lot of risks. So this actually goes against the age category right now, actually. So if you are an older person, you are 50 years old, you probably have a decent amount of money saved up. Whether it's $15,000 or $100,000 or $1 million, you probably have more money saved up than someone who's 20 years old, for the most part. Now, saying that, most Americans are still paycheck to paycheck with little to no savings, but you probably have some sort of social security to fall back on. So the more savings you have, the easier it is for you to take risks to get wealthy. So make sure you save up your money if you're going to start a side business. It makes things a lot easier. And I think that there's this general rule. You know what? I'm going to talk about this thing called the runway. So when I started all of my side businesses, I was actually listening to, and I think it's called the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast. I haven't listened to that in a very, very, very long time. We're talking years. And in the podcast, the guy named John Lee Dumas, I think that's the host, he would always talk about the runway he had. He saved up lots of money I think he worked for the military, and he had enough money where he could survive for 2 years. So he had 2 years of living expenses saved up. And so because of that, he was able to launch a business and just go full on into his business. For me, I had maybe a couple months of living expenses saved up, so I could take a risk for a few months and have it work out. A lot of you, with only $100 in your bank, you cannot take that risk right now to start a business, to quit your job and start a business. And so this is going back to, the savings part of this. You need to have at least a little bit of saving. It's better to have savings if you're looking to take risks to potentially earn a higher income in the future. That's something to think about. Now we're going to move on here to this big one here, is income. So this, we'll talk about pride. People aren't willing to take a pay cut to potentially make more money in the future. Think about this. So would you be willing, if you're making $40,000 a year, would you be willing to take a potential pay cut to $30,000 next year if it meant that you could potentially earn more in the future? Earn $70,000, $100,000, but there's no guarantee for that. People have this pride of like, no, I'm making 40 grand. I don't want to take a pay cut. I don't want to start living frugally. I don't know if that's a word yet. I've used that in a ton of my videos. I don't know if frugally is a word. But people aren't willing to take a pay cut to potentially have a better future for themselves. People aren't willing to stop drinking Starbucks every day or stop getting clothes once a month. And are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take a pay cut and live frugally for a while? I mean, I've told you guys my story about how I had the corporate job. I was making about $30 an hour. I could have stayed there when I was 18 years old. I remember one of my friends coming up and talking to me about this. And so we were going around, this was in university, and saying, hey, what did you do for work in the summer? And I said, well, I'm still working. I work this corporate job. it has to do with demographics, and I'm on the computer all the time. And I make like $30 an hour, which is, that's about 50 grand a year, 50 grand a year, 45 to 55 grand a year. And then he said to me, Jack, the reason why we are going to school is so that we can get one of those jobs. And he's like, why are you even here? You could just be working there and be happy. But I said, no, that's not what I wanted to do. I should make a video on that. Why I didn't want to do the 9 to 5. But yeah, income. I was willing to take a pay cut from whatever, $50,000 a year down to $25,000 a year just because I had room for potential. And now that's paid off like multiple times over itself just because I did that. So are you willing to take a pay cut in order to potentially give yourself a better life in the future with more income? So that's what this video is about. We're going to wrap this up here. So one trait that you need to have is risk tolerance. If you do not have a medical degree, a law degree, or an MBA, odds are you will need to have some sort of risk tolerance in order for you to get rich. That's what you have to do. So what do you guys think of this video? What is your risk tolerance? Are you willing to do these things? Are you willing to make some sacrifices here in order for you to get rich? Some people aren't. Actually, one question I should leave you guys with is, are you willing to not be paid for 6 months if it meant that you could potentially increase your income by 25 to 50% afterwards? But there's no guarantee. No guarantee. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Leave a comment. Anyways, I think that's going to wrap this video up. I'd like to thank you very much for watching. You're all very beautiful people. Hit that subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.